Thank you for all who has joined in. Welcome to today's webinar on modern application security and growing attack surface. Yeah, today's presenter, myself, Rahul. I'm the product manager for Invicti Solutions from Bulwark Distribution. Along with me, we have Mr. Glyn Yats, who is the regional lead for Middle East and Africa. About Bulwark and Invicti. Bulwark is an award-winning specialized cybersecurity award in the region. We have started our operations from 1999. We recently completed our 20 successful years of cyber excellence in the region. We represent 22 plus vendors across the region. We operate in GCC as well as in India. We have almost 500 plus partners across the region. We partnered with Invicti Solutions since 2017. We have a dedicated sales, marketing, and technical team for the solution. Also, we have technical engineers for having the demos. Over to you, Glyn, to take it forward.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you for yours and the Bulwark team for organising this. So, thank you everyone who's made it today. I know it was relatively short notice, so thank you for your time. Today we'll be looking at Invicti, the web application security leader, a global leader, and we'll be covering a number of things today. We'll be meeting the team. Today there's two of us, but there's a wider team. We'll be looking at the increasing attack surface and why application security testing, vulnerability scanning is important. We'll be looking a little bit about what it is and where it fits into a comprehensive security strategy for our customers, and also how Invicti. So the why now, and the why Invicti we will go through before a brief demonstration and a bit of a quiz, and there's some prizes to be won. So those that have attended today, you've got a lucky dip chance of winning some Amazon gift vouchers and maybe even more. A little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, feel free to ask questions throughout, but if you at relevant points, I will stop and ask if there's any questions from the floor. You're more than welcome to ask questions in the comments box and the question and answer box, which we will again refer to every now and then to answer those. The session today isn't deeply technical. It's to really give an overview of the value proposition, the business impacts, the business implications around security strategies, and how the value and the value proposition of Invicti to meet those needs. There will be a brief demonstration. If you require further information and a further deep dive, please reach out to your partners and we will arrange an individual session. We will arrange an individual session with you to understand about your requirements and how Invicti can meet them. But today is to give you a bit of a flavour on what we do, how we do it, and what we do for our customers in the region. So quickly moving on. My name is Glyn Yates. I'm the regional lead for Invicti for the Middle East and Africa. I've been in the region for 12 years now and led many vendors, especially in the security space. So I know you guys and I know the challenges that the region faces. Joining me today, we have Ali Mawani, who is our sales engineer, who is our domain expert, and will also be the gentleman who will be doing the demonstration. And if there's any future requirements, we'll work with you in terms of proof of concepts and also designing the solution with you. A few people that aren't on our presentation today, but we have an enterprise sales team, a commercial sales team, and our customer success team as well, who the sales teams will work with you up until the sale, and the customer success team is there to make sure you're leveraging the full value of the Invicti solutions moving forward. We don't just sell and forget. We work with you over many years for your success. A little bit about Invicti. You may not have heard of the name Invicti, but you may be more familiar with two of our brands, which is Akinetics and NetSparker, which have been in the market for quite a while. And a few years ago, there was a collaboration between the two and an overriding organization name of Invicti as the brand moving forward. So we've got a lot of customers worldwide. And what we really do is we really focus on the vulnerability analysis and scanning all your online presence, your web applications, your APIs, and anything that can really present an attack surface to a malicious hacker. So our products are really to focus on mitigating risk, but also adding automation, scalability, and integration into that process for you. It's not unusual, and we hear horror stories quite frequently, almost daily now, about the efforts and the sophistication of malicious hackers, the costs and implications, both financially and non-tangible, such as reputational damage, that organizations experience if there is a breach, if there is an attack. It's quite prevalent at the moment, and it's far more sophisticated nowadays than the Nigerian Prime Minister who's got 10 million to give you on a fishing expedition. We know some of the major names that have been attacked. We know how much it costs to in fines, data breaches, but also in terms of system upgrades as well. And we also sit there thinking, oh, that's fine, it's not going to happen to us. But it does. Only last week, there was the attack on the Ukrainian government that took out a majority of the government services. Just before that, there was the Log4j challenge, which impacted quite a lot of the internet, to be honest. Invicti was fortunate. We don't use Log4j, but with the immediacy of the announcement, all our customers were able to scan for that vulnerability and remediate that without any damage. So Invicti customers were less damaged with the Log4j than anyone else, which is great to see. Even the latest threat intelligence report from the UAE is quite alarming. If we look at some of the numbers on here, if we look at the finance industry, 407 attacks per organization per week is quite an aggressive approach from our unfriendly friends out there. And a lot of this was remote code execution, which is actually really key and critical because that's one of the major cracks in the defense systems of our customers. And obviously, we are the ones that go out and look for those vulnerabilities and report them back to you. Very, very scary numbers. And these are real life numbers. So spend, as we can appreciate, is increasing within our customers. But as we know, there isn't one solution that does everything. So every organization should have a multi-layered security strategy. And part of that strategy will be web application security and vulnerability testing, which is where we specialize. Now, when we do speak to our customers, we know that they're fully aware and all over their primary applications. The main ones that they have, they pretty much know inside out. But we also find out that they're not aware of a lot of lesser prevalent applications, a lot of websites that are out there that they're not aware of, or the other APIs and web assets that go under the radar. And to be perfectly honest, the hackers don't attack the main sites. They look for the vulnerabilities in the less popular one, less protected web applications and APIs. So we've been around for a while and we're really good at what we do. And because of that, we've got a very strong customer base, especially in this region. You'll recognize some of the names on here. Obviously, we have far wider commercial organizations in every country and every footprint within the region. I'll mention one organization on here, which is the National Cybersecurity Authority of Saudi Arabia. It is our biggest customer in the region, and it also is the biggest cybersecurity organization in the region. And they've been using Invicti now for many years and keep renewing. So that's a real testament to the quality and the capability of our technology. So what is application security testing? And one of the things I try and do to start with when I'm always presenting and speaking to customers is just to get rid of some of the terminology. Now, many of you out there will understand the differences But to those that aren't versed in application security testing, it's quite good and refreshing just to have a quick refresh on this. So you're probably aware of penetration testing. You may employ third parties to do pen testing for you. It's a one-time scanning service, generally done by a third party. It provides you a horizon and a view and a health check there and then, and comes at a particular professional services cost. And the issue is, it provides you with a report once, but the next day you may have a vulnerability, and therefore it's a one-off. So you may be out of compliance, you may be at vulnerability the next day, the next week, the next month. So a lot of people use pen testing predominantly for a compliance tick box rather than continual vulnerability scanning. When we get to vulnerability scanning, you may have heard of DAST, which is a static scanning. This is generally done on code in the development mode and is theoretical. As we know, it scans the code and it goes, there could be a problem there, and let's fix that before we publish it. However, it actually doesn't do real life protection. This is where dynamic application security testing is. So dynamic application security looks from the outside in. It looks for cracks in your security posture. It looks for vulnerabilities where we can inject code and take over systems to extract information. And it really is how it's the hacker's view of your online estate and your online presence. I got asked by a customer the other day, if I was to have one or the other, SAST or DAST, which do you recommend? And I'm saying, well, do you live in a theoretical world or a real world? And they said the real world. Okay, so the real world is DAST. It's how the hacker attacks you and they see the vulnerabilities. We get to the vulnerabilities first and make sure they're remediated. Not only do we do that, we provide the proof of those vulnerabilities. And I'll get to that a little bit later. So DAST was sort of legacy application security testing. DAST came after that because it's more real life, and Invicti were the pioneers of DAST. And lately there's something called IAST, which is interactive. So this is attached to the application, looks at issues within that code, but in a real life manner. And good IAST talks to your DAST and say, hey, there could be an issue here. DAST, can you test it? And it's a very, very comprehensive solution. We also do something called a software composition analysis, where organizations may be using freeware, may be using open source code into their own code, and we just need to be aware of that. We can scan it, we can provide that information for a risk analysis and also for compliance. So it's just good to have a review of where we are and what we're talking about. So the latest gentleman to the party is IAST. And again, this is attaching itself to the running applications and cloud computing, and it finds their vulnerabilities. A quick snapshot of the differences between the three flavors that I've mentioned. And you will have some vendors that will do SAST. You'll have some vendors that will do SAST and DAST. You will have some vendors that will do DAST and IAST. Invicti ourselves, we prefer the DAST and IAST. We prefer living in the real world rather than the theoretical code base. So we do work with some vendors who are very SAST in the software development piece to enhance their protection and again, as I say, the real life scenario. But it's not all things are created equally. So we have something called true IAST, where it is a real integration between the IAST element and the DAST element. And as I mentioned before, some vendors have IAST and DAST, but they don't talk to each other. They're different consoles, they're different UIs, they're different backends. With Invicti, it is one backend. It's truly integrated and provides the most comprehensive scanning capability and vulnerability tracking on the market. And that's why we have the customer bases that we have. So where SAST was legacy, we now need a modern approach. The hack is getting more modern. So when we say modern, we look at a number of things. We look at enterprise capabilities. We look at automation, how we can scan hundreds and thousands of assets with relatively small security teams if needed. We look at integration. How do we integrate with your existing issue tracking? How do we integrate with your other systems? How do we integrate with your SSO capabilities and authentication, just to make sure we've got there? And the second one is scale. Invicti can scale from 5, as we call them, targets, up to unlimited thousands of targets. In fact, our licensing is based on unlimited scanning. So we don't license per agent or person. We don't license per scans. Because if we license per scans, you may not want to scan as much to keep down the cost, but that's crazy. You want to be scanning all the time consistently. So we provide unlimited scanning. We just base it on the number of what we call targets, your web applications that you're looking to protect. Key differentiator. So because we can offer unlimited scanning, we can offer continuous scanning without any additional costs, which is fantastic. And we do this in 4 main areas. One is firstly to discover what you have. Very often we do proof of concepts with organizations, and we initially ask them, how many web applications, how many APIs do you have? And they say, well, we've got 10, we've got 20, we've got 50. And we run our discovery agent, and we find that they've got 100 or 200 or 300. And it's a real shock. And this is real life, And the CISO will go, wow, there's 50 marketing websites, landing pages that were spun up 3 years ago that are still active that we don't even know about. And these are vulnerabilities, right? So we'll close those down. The other 100 applications or IPIs I wasn't aware of, but we'll prioritize. So we'll prioritize the first 50. Now make sure they're secure because they are primary, and then we'll look at bringing the others on. So the discovery is really powerful, and it can be done in a day or two. Very, very powerful. Then we validate that. We show you the vulnerability. We show the proof of that vulnerability, so it's not a false positive, and we'll come to that later. And then we'll also, unlike a pen test, we'll also show you how to fix it. So we can integrate with your issue tracker, with your software team, and we can say, this is what we saw, this is what we injected, this is where it was, this is how to fix that, go and fix it. Then once you've fixed it, we scan it again to make sure it is fixed, and the vulnerability has disappeared, and then we can do the whole process. So this is continuous. And we'll show you, we'll map you, we'll show you what we've discovered. We'll show you that we're continuously discovering it, and the applications and the risk scores along with that. And within that scanning, we will detect the vulnerabilities, of course. Now, this is one of the areas where Invicti, again, is a different class. We are above the rest, and we are the best. One of the issues with detecting vulnerabilities is if you have slightly weaker scanning proof capabilities, a scanning technology will generally say, hey, here's a vulnerability, just to make sure. But there's an issue with that. And the issue is false positives. Okay, it destroys the trust in the technology, and it takes a lot of time from everyone. Okay, so if we look at a real issue versus a false positive, imagine there's a false positive, there's a vulnerability that's been flagged, but it's not really a vulnerability. So the security team get this, and they go to the application team, hey, you've got this vulnerability. And the application look at it and say, no, we can't see one. And then they send that to the dev team and go, hey, you've developed this, there's an application, there's a vulnerability, we can't find it, can you find it? And they go, no. And then they flag that back to the application team, who flag it back to the security team. So this goes around in a whole circle. And it's proven that a false positive actually takes up a lot more time, a lot more energy, a lot more money, and a lot more resources than actually a real issue. So the organizations then start losing faith and trust in the technology. So what Invicti does is every single vulnerability that we flag will either will either deliver the proof of exploit, or more importantly than that, will deliver the proof of the actual vulnerability itself. We'll show you the friendly code we've injected, where we've injected it, and how to fix it. And because we're showing you the proof of that vulnerability, our false positive rate is the lowest on the market. So you have trust in the technology, you're saving time, and we're actually proving what we've done and how to fix it. Very, very powerful. Show the fix, and then we'll test it. So once you've done the test, we've got the fix, and you are continuously scanning. So you are continuously checking for vulnerabilities in your online estate. And again, that is true layered security. We spoke about integration. Many of the applications you can see here, you may have them within your organization, and there are out-of-the-box integrations for these. Outside of these applications, there are also other API integrations that we can easily build, either through Invicti or through your partner. So you can do enterprise-wide integration, scale, and automation to your requirements. Some organizations don't want to automate everything, and they want to have that human interaction. Some organizations don't want to automate anything. But within Invicti, you can choose what is right for you. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop sharing now and pass you into the capable hands of Ali, who will provide a brief demonstration on NetSparker, one of the products, which we'll have a look at, and then if you want further information, we can go in a deeper dive at a separate time.
I will try to be as brief as possible, because if you want to have a technical deep dive, a thorough technical deep dive on NetSparker, it might take us hours and hours. So I will just pinpoint and highlight the main features of this solution. So as a DAST solution, dynamic application security testing, NetSparker has been in the market for the last 15, 16 years, and has been scanning all kinds of web assets such as websites, web applications, and APIs throughout this period. So we're talking about a robust and a mature DAST solution, dynamic application security testing. So there are this solution is will offer you a lot of features, informational features, scanning and vulnerability detection features, reporting features, and integration capabilities with issue tracking systems and CI/CDs. In addition to that, the ability to control your users and roles management. Speaking about the informational features, we have the dashboards here where it will tell you or will give you the security status of your web assets or targets. That we have severity trend or trend charts. We have also pie charts that will give you insights and information about the vulnerability types that you have, the average fix time. Also, you'll get the most identified technologies, which is part of the composition or the components that your websites are made of. So if it detects an outdated Apache version or PHP version, it will give you this and this chart. Also, the number of active issues, which are the issues that have not been addressed yet by your technical team, which in this way you'll be able to know how efficient or up to speed your teams are. In addition to that, we have the discovery tool, which will build a list on your behalf with all the websites that might belong to your organization, because building this list might be tedious and tricky for several reasons, and Glenn has mentioned some of these reasons during his presentation. So using this discovery tool, leveraging several technologies such as the email that you will use to activate your license, the SSL certificates that are installed on your websites, second level domains, and also organization names, it will collect, it will crawl and give you some websites that are potentially that might belong to your organization, so you can create targets and run scans on these in future. So these are informational tools. So but how to, what are the main feature or the main core of the DAST solution is detecting vulnerabilities and giving you all the needed details for each vulnerability, so your tech team would be able to remediate and fix those vulnerabilities. So if we go to the recent scan here, you'll get a list of all the scans that have been executed or that they are currently running. I will choose one of the scans. Let's say, for example, this one. So this is the outcome that you have to expect from a fully executed scan. Or even when the scan is still running, this page will give you some scan summary and will be updated on the fly with all the newest vulnerabilities and progress. So it will give you the security posture of this site or website in particular. Under this scan, it will also divide the vulnerabilities based on the criticality. If it's critical, we have 8 high criticality vulnerabilities, medium severity vulnerabilities, and low severity vulnerabilities. In addition to that, it will give you the percentage of the remediation progress. So by comparing the number of vulnerabilities that have been addressed or fixed between the last and the recent scans. So on this way, you'll be able to know how also efficient your tech team in terms of the remediating the issues. Also, you'll get a list of all the vulnerabilities detected, and they are grouped or categorized based on the vulnerability type. And from this list, if you choose any of these vulnerabilities, let's say the Boolean-based SQL injection, you'll get additional information, which is beneficial for the dev or the sec team in order to remediate. So you'll get the URL used, or let's say the payload or the attack pattern that was used by NetSparker to do this exploitation, the parameter name, the parameter type, the attack pattern, the proof of exploit. So if the developers are considering to reproduce this vulnerability, they can just use this proof of exploit or these steps that were applied in order to reproduce it. You will get vulnerability details, the parameters, the impact of this vulnerability, what are the actions to take, remediation references, external references, classifications, and the scoring. So instead of going online, looking for this information manually, NetSparker is providing them on a silver platter with the less time needed. So this is also time efficient, and it will save time for the technical team to start the remediation progress. Also, you will get the request and the response as an additional proof of the vulnerability itself. So you'll be able to know what did NetSparker actually send to the application and what did NetSparker receive from the application. Let's take also another vulnerability. I'll go with a cross-site scripting. So you'll get the same information, the attack pattern, also the request and the response. So since it is a cross-site scripting, it will highlight where the vulnerability took place. And if you use the IAST component, it will show you the component or the source file where the vulnerability is available and the line number, the code line number of the vulnerability itself. Now, the proprietary technology that we have is the proof-based scanning in NetSparker and this confirmation label. So once you see this label on a vulnerability, means that there is no way for this vulnerability to be a false positive. And this, instead of detecting 20 vulnerabilities and trying to reproduce each vulnerability and wasting your time on this long progress or this long phase, getting this confirmation, you will go directly to the remediation phase of this vulnerability. Also, you'd be able to export the vulnerabilities in a lot of scan formats, a lot of reports, we have the standard reports, we have the compliance reports based on the standards that you are following, HEPA, PCI, OWASP. Also, you can export to WAF rules, so you can patch your WAFs automatically for mod security and F5, and also you can export those vulnerabilities detected or the vulnerability list or the crawled URLs or the scanned URLs in XML format, JSON, or CSV. So if you have your own built-in or your own customized script that collects some XML files from a hot folder and parses the details and insert them to an internal system, you can leverage this feature. Also, you can download the scan data. You can also send to an issue tracking system without going manually to the, let's say that you're using Jira. So without going to Jira manually and filing a ticket on Jira, you can achieve out-of-the-box integration with a plethora of issue tracking systems, CI/CDs, and other platforms. So with one click, directly to an issue tracking system, and you will get also the issue tracking ticket ID in NetSparker means that there is no way you will have any duplicates of the same vulnerability on your issue tracking system. Of course, where to achieve this or where to create this out-of-the-box integration, just go to Manage Integrations in here. This is a list of the integrations that I've already added. You can go to New Integration, and these are the systems or the platforms that we support as out-of-the-box integration. Azure Boards, Bitbucket, Bugzilla, GitLab, GitHub, Trello, Asana, Azure Pipelines or Azure Boards, Jenkins, if you want to integrate with any CI/CD, so you can push your security checks more into the left side of the pipeline, so you can fail a build, and you can include the security checks in failing the build or in succeeding a build, or maybe if you want to run a build automatically from an CI/CD without even going or logging into NetSparker and doing this manually. In addition to that, we have out-of-the-box bi-directional integration with some of the issue tracking systems, such as the main ones, Jira, Azure Boards. So let's say that you send this to you file a ticket from NetSparker to Jira, and then you update this ticket on Jira. Then it will reflect the result or the status of this vulnerability on NetSparker. So this bidirectional communication between your DAST solution and your issue tracking system. Also, you can schedule the scans. So imagine you are scheduling the scan running on a specific time by itself automatically. Once it's done, and it detects the vulnerabilities, it will also automatically send those vulnerabilities to an issue tracking system. Then the next day, the developer will open the issue tracking system and see everything is ready for them, so they can start working. Once they remediate the vulnerability, they change the status on issue tracking system, and it will get updated automatically on NetSparker. And once it's updated to fixed and confirmed, NetSparker will launch a retest on this vulnerability in particular to make sure if the developer has actually fixed the vulnerability or not. So, and also, once a retest is done, you can track the logs of the vulnerability itself. So if we go again to the scan summary or the vulnerability list and choose any of these vulnerabilities, this one, for example, go to details, you can track the logs and the events on this vulnerability from here, who created a scan, who fixed it, if it was revived, so on and so forth. Also, to run a scan, it's very easy. First, you have to create the website. Creating a website is straightforward. Just go to new website, add an FQDN in here, put this website under a specific group where you can create as much groups as you want, and you can categorize and divide your targets based on groups for business functionality, geolocation, and maybe the technology that you are using. So you can feel free to divide them, and this will give you much more granularity in terms of users management, roles management, and giving permission and privilege for users on specific types of websites. To run a scan also, it's easy, straightforward. You just choose some of these settings. Choose this one, for example. You can create a scan profile, which is a preset of all these settings that you can fill once, and then it will run automatically using this preset. So it's also another level of automation and less human intervention and manual intervention. You can also create your own scan policies, which are the number of checks that you want NetSparker to perform. Let's say you want a scan that is focused on cross-site scripting only, or a scan that is focused on SQL injection, or a comprehensive scan, a full scan that will run on every single technology. So also from the scan policies, you can, let's go to the scan policies. You can go more into details about the scanning performance itself. So you can change how the scanner will deal with JavaScripts, how the scanner will deal during the crawling process, what are the security checks, the attacking settings. Even if you have a custom 404, you can set your manual custom 404. You can change the values that NetSparker will fill when it starts scrolling, slicing, and filling the input fields, and so on and so forth. So much features that you can leverage, and you can tailor your scanning performance as per your requirements and needs. Also, you have the report policy where you can also configure what will NetSpark show you once the scan is done. Will it show you every single vulnerability detected, or do you want only to focus on high and critical vulnerabilities? So you can set this in here. You can also scan APIs. Instead of adding the links manually in this text box, you can directly upload a Postman or any, let's say, Postman collection or a Fiddler or a Swagger, any API file, or even in GraphQL schema, and then you will ensure a full coverage of your API. Also, you can you can add your URL rewrite rules, okay? And NetSparker also will try to detect your URL rewrite mode and rules. Also, you can use any of the authentication methodologies that we support. For example, you have the normal form authentication where you add the login URL. Let me, because this is interesting. Your login form authentication URL, you can add a username and password, and you can create your own script to log in to the application. So you can generate some CSS codes, and it will fill the username and the password, and it will submit an action handler or action listener for the submit button. You can also test the script to check if everything is working properly. In addition to that, you can verify the login and the logout from here by making NetSparker trying to detect the session validity pattern of your application. So if you have a timeout value that is 15 minutes and the scan will take 45 minutes, in order not to disrupt the scanning performance that might affect also the coverage and the scanning process and journey, NetSparker will detect the session validity pattern, and then in case it counters any timeout, it will log in automatically by itself, which is a clever approach in order not to disrupt the scanning process. We have also other authentication methodologies, basic, NTLM, Kerberos. If your API, for example, is authenticated using an HTTP header authentication, you can use this authentication method. We also support client certificate and OAuth too. In addition to that, we have our NetSparker API documentation, where you can find the list of all the API endpoints for all the options and the features that are available in NetSparker. Means that you can also create and build your own code, your own internal applications, leveraging and using this API documentation. Last but not least, we have the teams. As I mentioned, you can manage your users by creating as much users as you want, by sending a new member invitation. And you can add this user under a role, assign a role to this user, and a role is a group or a list of permissions and privileges, or you can assign this user to a team, which is a group of roles. Let's say that you have a user who is who works only as an auditor, then you have a user who works only as a tester, and then you have another user that he is both an auditor and a tester. So you can group the two roles in one team. Speaking about the new roles or the roles management, this is the list of the features of the permissions and the privileges that are available in NetSparker. We have 84 different permissions for a role, covering all the actions in NetSpark, and deleting a scan, adding a scan, running a scan, adding a website, exporting PDF, and so on and so forth. Last, we have the agents, because when you create a target, you might be using the cloud setup and you have an internal application that is on a DMZ, or maybe that it's not exposed online and you want to scan it using the cloud setup. So you can create an agent by managing the agents from here. install this agent locally on your internal network, and it will be like the in the middle communicator between your internal network that is not exposed to the web or online with the cloud setup, and it will achieve this communication, and it will run scans on the behalf of the cloud setup. So I tried to be brief as much as possible. As I mentioned, that if we want to go a technical deep dive, it will take us hours. So thanks a lot. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. One question which has popped up is, how is NetSparker different from Akinetics?
Yeah, I can take that. It's a very good question. So there is a lot of overlap because they were two separate products which have been collaborated. But a really simple rule of thumb is we generally look at NetSpark for our scaling customers and what we call our enterprise customers. And the reason is there's greater scale, there's greater automation, and there's greater integration capabilities. So we would never say Akinetics is an SMB or mid-market product. It's very, very good. In fact, a lot of our customers use Akinetics. But for the organizations that really want to focus on that automation piece, especially, then NetSparker has a little bit of greater capabilities around integration and automation. If that answers that question.
Thank you, Glenn.
And it's a bit more expensive because of that. Okay.
Okay. One other question is, can we host the scanner in our cloud or premises?
Well, one of the wonderful things about Akinetics, and one of the reasons we have such a fantastic customer base, especially in the Middle East, is that the delivery model can be. So when we look at a SaaS offering, that's our cloud, delivering those capabilities to you. When you look at on-premise, that means one of two things. You can hold that on your own infrastructure, or you can hold that in your own private cloud as well. So very, very flexible on how we deliver the technology.
Thank you, Glenn. Also, one other question is, do you support multi-tenancy?
Ali?
Yeah, if you can just give me more information about what is multi-tenancy, because multi-tenant applications, they have different routes that they might take. So if you can just tell me more about the architecture that you're trying to deliver, so I would be able to answer.
If that question has come from Morrow Hub, then we can have that conversation separately around MSSP. Our customer base is here across governments, across commercial, across financial services, across healthcare. So the next thing to do is really to obviously have a conversation, look internally. If you are fully, completely covered on with DAST and IAST and SCA, then you're probably not attending this webinar anyway. So that everyone who has attended probably has a requirement to look at this a little bit further. So as a customer, please get in touch with your reseller partner, and we'll see if they're one of ours. If you're not sure if your reseller partner is an Invicti partner or you're approved supplier list, then reach out to myself. I'll share my details with you, with everyone here, or Rahul from Bulwark, and we can certainly get an accredited Invicti partner to get in touch with you to understand a little bit more about the requirements and how you can enhance your posture and your scanning capabilities. And then we can do a deeper dive and do a relevant demonstration to your requirements and maybe move forward through POC in that process. So yeah, please reach out and you'll get the follow-up. We'll send a recording of this. If there's no more questions, thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much to Ali for your wonderful demonstration, and to Rahul and the Bulwark team for the organization and driving this as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Glenn, for your wonderful time. Thanks, Ali, also for your time for the demo. Thank you all who have joined in. Thank you all. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.